What would you do if your entire future depended on marrying a stranger chosen by someone else? The day Malcolm Cross turned 28, his grandfather sent him a letter. Not an email, not a call. A letter, ivory paper, thick with old money, sealed with crimson wax like it had just arrived from the Victorian era. His grandfather, Whitford Cross, did things that way. Formal. Icy. Absolute. Malcolm didn't open it at first. He stared at it while sipping his black coffee in the sun-drenched kitchen of his modest Chicago apartment, the kind that had exposed brick and a ceiling fan that always clicked. It wasn't that he feared what was inside, he just knew, whatever it was, it wouldn't be casual. He waited until evening, until the sun started slipping behind the buildings and the fans clicking grew too loud for silence to swallow. Then he broke the seal. It was a demand. A clause. A stipulation from a man who saw the world in contracts. Malcolm was to marry. Not just anyone. One of 3 women. Their names were listed in cursive ink, each followed by a paragraph describing their lineage, assets, and social standing as though they were prize horses. Whitford called it an arrangement of legacy. Marry one of them within the year, or forfeit the inheritance. Malcolm laughed. A quick, sharp sound that didn't last long. It wasn't just the inheritance. It was the inheritance. Whitford Cross was worth hundreds of millions, real estate, equities, art collections older than the country. If Malcolm refused, it would all pass to second cousins in Connecticut he'd never met and who'd likely never set foot on Chicago soil. But what sickened him more than the arrogance of the offer was how little his grandfather seemed to care what Malcolm wanted. No mention of love, partnership, or choice. Just strategy. Malcolm called his mother, Caroline, even though she hated talking about Whitford. "He's testing you," she said wearily, like someone too tired to keep fencing. "Like he tested your father. Like he tested me. And what happens if I fail?" There was a pause. "He cuts. He doesn't bend, Malcolm. He cuts you off, and then pretends you never existed." He already knew that, deep down. Whitford Cross had disowned his own brother in the 1980s over a woman he married without the family's approval. Malcolm grew up never meeting the man. Just a framed photo in a hallway and a silence around it so thick you could choke on it. Still, this was different. This was now. And these women, who were they? One name he recognized, Emery Tolland, the daughter of Whitford's closest business partner. They'd met at a dinner once. She'd smiled like it cost her effort. The others were strangers. He read the letter again. At the bottom was an addendum in red ink. "Should you need assistance in arranging introductions, the family office will facilitate. This is a time-sensitive matter. Make haste." Like he was shopping for stock. Like love had an assistant. That night, Malcolm didn't sleep. He paced. He pulled old books from his shelves, philosophy, poetry, anything to shove the anger aside. But it stuck to his ribs. By morning, he made a decision, not to decide. Not yet. Instead, he called Emery. Her voice was cool. Measured. "Yes, I received the same letter," she said before he could even ask. "And no, I'm not thrilled. But let's meet. Talk. I don't believe in fate, Malcolm, but I believe in leverage." He wasn't sure if that made it better or worse. They met the next day. Then another woman the next. Each encounter like a chess game wrapped in a blind date. Everyone pretending not to want the money, but no one quite walking away. And all the while, Malcolm couldn't shake the feeling that this was never about marriage. Not really. It was about power. About Whitford's cold hand reaching from his estate, pulling the strings. But what if love, real love, wasn't on that list? What if the right choice was the wrong one in Whitford's eyes? And what if walking away meant losing everything, except his soul? The second woman on Whitford's list was named Sophia Lang. Daughter of an Austrian banking family, currently living in New York. Malcolm had never heard of her before the letter, but when he Googled her name, a dozen charity gala photos popped up. Tall, dark-haired, high cheekbones, always looking left of the camera like she knew something everyone else didn't. Their meeting was arranged at a rooftop bar in Midtown. Sophia arrived 10 minutes late, no apology, and sat down like the seat had been waiting for her all along. "You're Malcolm Cross," she said, sipping a martini. "You don't look like a billionaire's heir." "Because I'm not," he replied. "Not yet. Maybe never." She tilted her head, amused. "That's a dangerous kind of honesty." "No, dangerous is being told who to marry with a dollar sign attached." She mused. "You'd be surprised how many people consider that a luxury." They talked for an hour. She was sharper than he expected. Elegant, yes, but with a cynical streak that made her interesting. She admitted she wasn't looking for romance. Her father, like Whitford, saw people as pieces on a board. She was used to it. She didn't mind arrangements, so long as everyone knew the rules. "I won't pretend," she said finally. "But I won't play you, either. We can make this work, if we need to. Just say the word." Malcolm nodded, not because he agreed, but because he respected the clarity. The old man had chosen his candidates well. None of them naive. All of them willing, for the right price. The third name, Juniper Lane, came with the least information. No high society photo trail. No LinkedIn or articles or old interviews. Just a mailing address in a small town outside Milwaukee and a note, daughter of Marla Lane. Former estate staff. Music teacher. The inclusion of her name confused Malcolm more than anything. Why would Whitford, who refused to acknowledge the staff as equals, let alone family, add her to the list? He drove upstate on a rainy Thursday, no suit, no agenda, just questions. Her home was a small house tucked under sycamores, wildflowers overtaking the walkway. When she opened the door, he nearly forgot why he came. She wasn't like the others. Her eyes weren't calculating. They were cautious. Not cold, but like someone who'd learned not to expect kindness unless it was proven. "You're here about the letter," she said before he introduced himself. "I figured someone would come eventually." "You know what it is?" She nodded. "I read it 3 times and then burned it." Malcolm blinked. "You burned it?" "Yep." She opened the screen door wider. "You coming in, or do you just want to stand there looking like you lost your GPS signal?" Inside, her house smelled of cinnamon and old books. Sheet music covered the piano bench. Photos of kids holding violins, beaming with crooked teeth. Juniper poured him tea. Not coffee. Tea, because coffee's a lie that sleep isn't sacred. They talked for hours. She told him about her mother, Marla, who worked for Whitford in the 80s as a cook and who left without explanation. About how Whitford still paid her mother's medical bills until she passed away last year. About how she hadn't spoken to anyone in the Cross family in decades. "So why are you on the list?" Malcolm asked. Juniper looked away. "I think it's guilt. Or an apology he doesn't know how to give." "And would you marry me?" The question landed like a dare. "I don't know you," she said. "And you don't know me. I'm not here to be someone's golden ticket. I have a life. A real one. Not built on marble and expectations." Her words lodged somewhere deep. Malcolm drove back to Chicago that night with her voice echoing louder than he expected. 3 women. 3 offers. And then a 4th person entered the picture. Someone who wasn't on the list. Her name was Katie Brenner. She wasn't rich. She wasn't vetted. She was a bartender at a jazz lounge Malcolm had started frequenting at night, just to hear her laugh. She poured whiskey like she wrote poetry and remembered his order after one visit. She wasn't supposed to matter. But one night, after too much scotch and too little sleep, Malcolm found himself walking her home. And she looked at him, not like he was a cross or a potential millionaire, but like a man trying to find the edge of something real. And then she said, "You've got this look like you're being chased by something expensive." He laughed for the first time in days. She wasn't on the list. But she made him feel alive. Malcolm didn't tell Katie about the inheritance, not at first. He couldn't. Their connection felt too clean, too unpolished. He was terrified that introducing money into it would corrupt something rare, honesty without agenda. Instead, they talked about music, about Chicago winters, about the bar where she'd once chased out a drunk with a broom. She had a laugh that tugged something loose in his chest, like an old boarded-up window finally cracking open. But every morning, the reality returned. The deadline Whitford had set was ticking louder. Emery texted him, checking in. Sophia sent an article on the benefits of prenuptial clarity. And Juniper? Juniper mailed him a handwritten note, no return address, just a quote. A man who stands between choice and cost cannot remain still forever. Anonymous. Katie didn't ask questions. But she watched him with those hazel eyes that missed nothing. She could feel the tension radiating off him, and it made her pull back just slightly. Not cold, but uncertain. Then came the dinner invitation. Whitford wanted Malcolm to join him at the family estate in Lake Forest. The message was clear: make a decision, or one will be made for you. Malcolm arrived at dusk. The house was just as he remembered it, massive, symmetrical, and lifeless. The kind of house that was designed to intimidate rather than comfort. Whitford was waiting in the library. A fireplace burned low, more for drama than warmth. He stood as Malcolm entered, not to greet him, but to establish posture. "You've had time," Whitford said without preamble. "I've met them all," Malcolm replied, tone flat. "And they're smart. Capable. Impressive in different ways." Whitford nodded once, as though ticking a box. "And which will it be?" Malcolm didn't answer immediately. He stared at a painting over the mantel, an oil portrait of his grandfather at 30. Sharp jaw, eyes like ice. The same gaze he used now. "I'm not sure I want to choose from your list," Malcolm said. Whitford's face barely moved. "That wasn't a question." "No," Malcolm said. "It wasn't." For a moment, there was silence. Then the old man stepped to a cabinet, unlocked it with a key from his vest pocket, and retrieved something wrapped in cloth. He placed it on the table between them. "Your grandmother's necklace," Whitford said. "It was meant to go to your mother, but she rejected the family." Malcolm didn't touch it. "And now? It's yours. If you marry." A symbol of continuity. He said it like continuity was holy. Like bloodlines were sacred text. Malcolm looked down at the necklace, pearls interlaced with emeralds, too elegant to be casual, too heavy to be worn lightly. "Is this supposed to persuade me?" "No. It's to remind you. Legacy is not just about money. It's about obedience to purpose." Malcolm flinched at the word, obedience. He left the estate with the necklace still in his coat pocket, unsure why he'd taken it. The next day, he told Katie everything. About the letter, the women, the inheritance. All of it. She listened without interruption, her fingers wrapped around a chipped coffee mug in his kitchen. When he finished, she was quiet for a long moment. "So," she said. "You're being auctioned off. And I'm not even in the catalog." "It's not like that. Isn't it?" He moved toward her, but she stepped back. Not angry. Hurt. "You should have told me. I didn't want it to ruin this." "But it already did," she said, voice soft. "Because now I have to wonder, am I the real thing, or just a detour before you pick a name off the list?" He had no answer. That night, she didn't stay. The next day, neither did the necklace. He boxed it and mailed it back to Whitford with no note. And for the first time in his life, Malcolm felt free. But freedom, he was learning, came with a price. Later that week, Juniper called. "I think," she said, "you're the only one trying to do this with your heart instead of your wallet. And that's a problem. For your grandfather, yes. For the rest of us, it's rare." He could hear wind chimes in the background. Kids laughing. She was at a school, maybe. Or home. "Do you want to get a drink?" she asked suddenly. He hesitated. Then, "I think I do." But before he could make the drive, a headline hit the news. Billionaire Whitford Cross hospitalized after sudden collapse at estate. Condition critical. Everything changed. Malcolm didn't rush to the hospital. He told himself it was because the media was already there, that the chaos wouldn't help anyone. But the truth was simpler, he wasn't sure what he'd feel if his grandfather died. The man had shaped Malcolm's life from afar, like a puppeteer with gold strings, tightening, loosening, never truly letting go. But love? Malcolm couldn't remember a single time Whitford had said he was proud of him, or even happy. By the time Malcolm arrived at St. Regis Memorial, Whitford was in a medically induced coma. Machines breathed for him. IVs threaded into his veins like pale vines. A nurse stood guard near the door, clipboard in hand. Malcolm stood there for 10 minutes, just staring. Trying to feel something. Anything. Anger came first. Then grief, but not for Whitford. For what they never had. For the moments stolen by rules and pride and transactional affection. Caroline, his mother, arrived later. Her expression was blank, armored. He looks small, she said. He was never big, Malcolm replied. Just loud. She laughed, one breath, bitter and true. The next day, the lawyer called. Whitford's attorney, a man named Langston who spoke like every word was a deposition. We need you present at the estate. The will includes urgent directives. Now that his condition is critical, succession clauses are in effect. Malcolm blinked. Succession clauses. He prepared a living will with activation triggers. You were mentioned. It felt like a trap, but he went anyway. The estate's conference room had never felt more like a war bunker, mahogany table, oil paintings of stoic ancestors, and Langston at the head with a briefcase full of secrets. There were others, Emery's father. Sophia's mother via speakerphone. And Juniper. Quiet in a corner, arms crossed. Langston opened the will and read. Malcolm expected the usual, assets, divisions, percentages. But what came next made his stomach flip. If Malcolm Cross does not choose a spouse from the 3 named candidates by the 31st of this month, Langston read, his inheritance will revert to the Cross Preservation Trust, and his claim to all real assets shall be nullified. Juniper stood. That's coercion. Langston didn't blink. It's legally sound. Every party was notified. Malcolm stared at him. He's not even dead yet. Whitford Cross believed in proactive estate planning. It felt like the last move in a long, calculated game. But then Langston closed the will, folded his hands, and added, there is one amendment. Recently added. Everyone turned toward him. Langston continued, should Malcolm reject the arrangement entirely, he is entitled to a consolation disbursement, a modest trust of $400,000, released over 4 years. Non-transferable. Conditional on abstaining from legal action against the estate. Silence. Emery's father coughed. Sophia's mother asked for clarification. Malcolm sat back, dizzy. He could walk away. Lose the empire. Keep his soul. And still not be entirely ruined. But would that be surviving, or surrendering? Later that night, he sat with Juniper in a tiny diner off Route 50. No media. No lawyers. Just fries and coffee. I used to think, she said, that people like your grandfather only played chess with people who volunteered to be pieces. Malcolm stirred his cup. What changed? You. He looked at her. Why are you here? Juniper smiled, sad and small. Because when someone tries to turn your life into a transaction, the only way to win is to remind them you're human. The clock ticked louder in his mind. Days left. Choices narrowing. Katie hadn't returned his calls. Sophia sent him a prenup draft. Emery asked him if he wanted to plan a non-romantic ceremony. And Malcolm. Malcolm went to the lake. He stood at the shore, wind tearing at his coat, thinking about everything he could lose. Everything he never had. Everything he still might find. And then, without a plan, he dialed Katie one last time. She answered. Hey, Katie said, voice low and cautious, like she was holding a door open just a crack. I need 5 minutes, Malcolm said, wind catching his breath. Not to ask for anything. Just to say something. A pause. Then, okay. He met her outside her building. She didn't invite him in. She wore a hoodie, her hair tied up in a way that told him this wasn't going to be easy. I was wrong not to tell you, he said. I thought I was protecting something pure. But I was just afraid. Of me. No. Of what it would mean if you walked away. Katie folded her arms. And now. He looked her straight in the eye. Now I think you deserve to walk away if that's what you want. But I needed you to know I never saw you as an option. You were never part of the list because you were the only real thing outside it. She didn't respond right away. She stared at the sidewalk like it might give her the right words. I've seen guys lie, she said slowly. For money. For sex. For a shot at something bigger. You didn't lie. But you held the truth like it belonged to you more than me. I know. I can't be your rebellion, she whispered. Your escape hatch. You're not, he said, voice cracking slightly. You're the person I think about when I wonder what a real life looks like. Not just a rich one. Katie stepped back, breathing hard. Then she shook her head, not in anger, but in conflict. I need time, she said. If you choose the money, choose it. Don't chase me halfway and expect me to hold the rope. She turned and walked inside. He didn't follow. The final week was a storm. Whitford's condition stabilized but left him unconscious. Media speculation spun wild stories, secret children, offshore accounts, legacy scandals. Emery withdrew. She sent a terse message, this isn't a merger anymore. Good luck. Sophia stayed in. If we do this, she told him, we split the inheritance. You keep your soul, I keep my time. No expectations. But it felt hollow. Like signing a lease on a house you never wanted to live in. Then came Juniper. They met again, this time at her music school, while kids ran scales on worn-out violins. I got a call, she said. From the family office. Let me guess, they want you to convince me. She smiled faintly. No. They want me to stop confusing you. Are you? I don't know. But I'm not part of your destiny, Malcolm. I'm just someone who knows what it feels like to want something that doesn't make sense on paper. He watched a boy in the next room fumble a melody, then correct himself. A little burst of music breaking through silence. What would you do? Malcolm asked. If I were you, she said, then paused. I'd walk into that estate, look every one of those people in the eye, and choose what scares me most. Because that's the only choice that's probably real. 2 days before the deadline, Malcolm returned to the estate. Langston was waiting. So were representatives from the trust board. Legal documents stacked like tombstones on the table. Have you reached a decision? Langston asked. Malcolm pulled out an envelope and slid it across. My answer is inside. Langston opened it. One line, handwritten. I decline the inheritance. I will not marry for money. Gasps. Murmurs. Legal pens froze in midair. You understand what this means? Langston said. I do. No reconsideration. No. Langston closed the folder. Very well. The trust will proceed accordingly. Malcolm stood, heartbeat steady. But as he walked out, one of the board members, an older woman with sharp eyes, called after him. Mr. Cross, she said. There's one more matter. He turned. Your grandfather left a personal codicil. Not legally binding. But, of interest. She handed him a sealed envelope. Later, alone on a park bench, he opened it. Inside was a letter. In Whitford's handwriting. If you're reading this, you did what I couldn't. You chose your own path. I disowned a brother once for that. I never forgave myself. Maybe I tried to fix it through you. Maybe I failed again. But know this, you're stronger than I ever was. Attached was a photograph. A young Whitford and his brother, smiling. Not posed. Real. Malcolm closed his eyes. The inheritance was gone. But something had been given back. Malcolm moved out of his Chicago apartment 2 weeks after the announcement. The media frenzy was intense for a few days, Air turns down fortune, headlines screamed, but it faded quickly, like all noise in a world addicted to outrage and novelty. A newer scandal had come along by Thursday. He kept the car. Sold some furniture. And he started teaching. Business ethics, of all things, at a community college on the South Side, just 2 nights a week. The irony wasn't lost on him, but it felt right. Like some quiet penance. A way to turn everything he'd witnessed into something useful. Katie didn't call. She didn't text. For a while, he didn't try, telling himself it was better to let her live her peace. Then one night, he passed her bar. Just to see if she still worked there. She was behind the counter, laughing at something a customer said, wiping a glass with a towel that had seen too many shifts. She didn't notice him. He walked on. But she haunted him harder than any ghost. Juniper sent him a postcard from Vienna. Took your advice. Finally used my passport. Turns out, fear was the only thing keeping me local. You were right. Say hi to the lake. Sophia emailed him a year later. She'd married a French financier and seemed happy enough. Thanks for not choosing me, she wrote. I might have done it. We both would have lost. Emery disappeared from social media entirely. Whitford died 9 months after the coma began. There was no grand funeral. Just a closed ceremony with 2 lawyers, a priest, and a folded flag. No one cried. Not even Caroline. Malcolm went. He stood beside the grave for a long time afterward, whispering things no one else could hear. You didn't win. But neither did I. I guess that makes us even. Then he left a small stone on the headstone, a tradition Juniper had told him about once. For presents. For memory. Not for forgiveness. Just acknowledgement. One Sunday, nearly a year to the day after everything began, he saw Katie again. He was walking past the bookstore she used to mention, the one that smelled like cedar and sold first editions no one could afford. She was inside, thumbing through a copy of A Movable Feast. She didn't see him at first. He hesitated. Then pushed open the door, the bell above ringing like a dare. She turned. Their eyes met. Neither spoke for several seconds. You still drinking scotch? She asked finally. He smiled. Only on cold nights. She raised an eyebrow. It's June. Then maybe I was waiting for a reason. Her lips curved. Small. Not a smile. Not yet. But close. They walked through the store together. Not touching. Not making promises. He told her everything, the college, the classes, the old necklace he never saw again. She told him she'd moved in with a roommate, was saving to open a cafe, had stopped dating for a while to clear her head. When they left, it was sunset. Orange bleeding into navy, the kind of light that makes everything look softer, like an apology whispered across the sky. They walked side by side for 5 blocks in silence. Then she reached out. Took his hand. Not tightly. Just enough. Like something real. Malcolm never became a millionaire. But he learned how to live like someone who'd once been given the option, and had turned it down for the right reasons. And sometimes, in the quiet spaces of his new life, he felt a different kind of wealth blooming. One not tied to trusts or last names or emerald necklaces. But to courage. And choice. And the priceless feeling of someone choosing you back, not because they had to. But because they wanted to.